Good morning, students. In today's video lecture for class 8th, we will continue a very interesting poem named Geography Lesson. The poem is composed by an Indian origin poet named Zulfikar Ghosh. Zulfikar Ghosh is a novelist, poet, and essayist. He's a native of India and current resident of Texas. You can find a harsh realism in his all works. So here's a one piece of his such works. There are some introductory questions for you. Can you imagine what your city would look like if you saw it from 10,000 feet above the ground? Definitely it would be strange view, different helicopter view from this height. Neatly planned and perfect in portion like a geometric design. It would strike you as something very different. Definitely if you'll see the same place from very height, it will look again little different. So here is such a thematic poem on very wonderful theme. In this poem, the poet describes the scene of the city and the country from an aeroplane flying very high. When the jet plane took off, the sky was very clear. So he expresses his experiences with us. So first stanza is, when the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned, and without style when the jet sprang into the sky. So here you can see this line, again the first line. So these both lines are repeated, so we call it refrain. If such kind of lines are repeated in one stanza more than one time, we call it refrain figure of speech. So refrain is used to put more stress on the point and not to divert from the topic. So when the jet goes up, jet plane took off, the sky was very clear and the country from an airplane seems that very organized. The poet looked out from the window and what he sees, the city looked very neatly planned, as if it is programmed very neatly, prepared, made very neatly. But on ground, it looks without plan or order. But when you see the same thing from very near, like from ground, you see the things are quite haphazard. As the word used here, haphazard means all disorder. And what is inevitability is it looks from that height that it is very necessity of the thing. Inevitability means something that is unavoidable, that you cannot avoid, that unorganized things are very necessary to, you cannot avoid it. Suppose there is a very big rock, so you cannot build a house there, so that is inevitability. And but on ground it looked without any plan. It had numerous lanes and houses, streets, or kind of shops without style or without any proper symmetry. It looks when the jet sprang into the sky. There are quite certain things from the earth that seems very unorganized, but from height you see that it is quite well, quite organized, and it is inavailability of the place that you can't change it. As it is, it should be in proper way. This is shown. Then the poet says in the second stanza, when the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran. When the jet rose up again at some more height, it's given 10,000 feet. So that time it was very clear why the country had cities, and where are the cities? Where rivers ran, and why the valleys were only populated. Means he could understand well that why the cities are nearby river banks. Definitely, where there will be the water, there will be plain valleys. People will go definitely to those places, because this is a logic of geography that plains and water bodies attracts population. So writer says that he, at this 10,000 feet above sea level, he looked below and realized the logic of geography. What was the logic of geography? That the rivers, banks, and the plain areas, the valleys attract human being population. Secondly, the people lived chiefly in the valleys. So this is the level land between the hills, and people but naturally go to such places. Secondly, the people lived chiefly in valleys, and land and water are primary needs. This is the logic of geography, and they attract the people. When, and it was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. So he wants to say that from this height it is very clearly delineated, means shown. Again, there is one line that is repeated, the last one, we call it refrain. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, this line is again repeated here, so we call it refrain. When the jet rose 6 miles high, again the jet rises to some more high, and the height is 6 miles high. It was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. So from this height, the writer want to say that the plane rose as high, and it looked it had more water than land, means at more again higher place. You can see very easily that it is the earth is rounded and there is more water than land. This, from this side, it is very clearly visible. The poet understood the reason why it was so, but he could not see any logic behind the division of land by raising walls of bricks and hatred, and why people went madly after one another's life, one another's thought. Like it is very well defined here. From this side, it was difficult to understand one thing, that men on the earth found causes to fight and build walls, means boundaries across cities and countries, in between the cities and countries, and why people find cause to kill one another and have a feeling of hatred. So very clearly he want to say that in different heights he understood that why people live nearby rivers, why people live more in cities than in village areas, why people, the something that seems very haphazard from the earth seems again very logical, very appropriate, very inevitable from the height. But he could not understand one thing in this journey of his through the jet, that why there are walls, why there were boundaries, why people find a reason to fight, why people went mad after one another's life. So he could not find any logic for making boundaries or walls or making separation between the countries. Why there are boundaries? Why people find a reason for fight? So this he could not understand in this height of him. So, conclusion is that he completely failed to understand why people hated each other, divided the land into separate units and separate countries or states, and why people find a reason or cause to kill each other or fight with each other. Why do people hate? There is no geographical, no natural reason behind it. The writer could not understand it. And he introspects and he put us in introspection that we also should think over this issue. Thank you for attending this. You all are requested to please do some exercise or assignment given basis of this.